Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode. This is our 570th episode, and we have our world famous speakers, Professor David Smith and Professor Dr. Eric Dew. We will discuss on future of work. First, I would like to give chance Dr. Eric Dew.
Morning.
Good morning.
You want me to talk about future of work right now, or
Yes.
that's a very broad question or discussion. For sure, that there will always be work. There will be work. There will be more well-paying work, more life-affirming work, more interesting work that will be coming out. Of course, in every profession and everything that people do, there are always elements of it that are dull, unappealing. There's no way to get around that. Everything has to have some of the dull parts, right? I mean, you could be like the world's greatest scientist, and some days you're in the lab cleaning test tubes. Nobody likes to do that part, but you're going to have to do that. Nobody's going to do that for you sometimes. So most more likely, for scientists, the boring things are the paperwork. You have to fill out your time sheets. You have to fill out this, whatever, submit this to get paid and all these other stuff. And there's always a lot of dull parts. But there will always going to be work, and there will be more and more interesting ones in the sense that if you look at history, for most of human history, work was involved. That was the two big type of work was in construction of buildings. Okay, and you can go this can go back literally to tens of thousands of years, right? Göbekli Tepe in Turkey and everywhere else. One of our earliest indications of human civilization had housing and had buildings. So construction has been around ever since then. And of course, the other one is agriculture, growing food. And I think it was in most of human history, it was maybe 90-10 in terms of growing food versus construction. There's also war and being in the military, but let's not consider that part because that's not typical, right? I mean, not for most of human history, women didn't do it, and some children didn't do it, and aged people did not do it. So it was really limited to, I guess, the restless men in the late teens to the early 30s or so.
Thank you, sir.
I'll get to someone else.
Okay, Professor David Smith. Can you unmute, please?
The future of work has changed so dramatically over the last 2.5 years that we've seen big changes where we're trying to figure out actually what are the impacts going forward and how are they going to begin to change the way companies and elements work. Let's first step back and look at a couple of classes of workers. Let's talk about knowledge workers and people who work in factories and do more manual labor. Those two classes of workers are going to be very different as we go to the future on this. What COVID has taught us is that we were being sent to work for our homes for our own safety and for the safety of others. But that's really redefined the way going to work forward, and the workforce itself has evolved a lot. So for knowledge workers, those are workers whose main capital is knowledge. These are architects, writers, doctors, scientists, engineers, lawyers, many different types. They went from working full-time in an office to completely working remotely. And in many ways, that is kind of where we're seeing. So if we look at recent surveys on the future of work, we see that hybrid work is going to become more of the norm. A recent survey with CEOs and the chief human resource officers, they plan to split working from home with working from an office space, where they said 75% of their employees claim they would give up perks at work, even pay, to be able to blend their work environment and work at home. So many people say this is the best of both worlds, and we're seeing that particularly with the fact that so many people have resigned from the work and how they're beginning to go and do things with that. And we see them just really. The other key thing to think about is that in many studies recently, it's becoming clear that part of the power has shifted when it comes to our work environment. It has shifted more from organizations to people. And we see that with the great resignation. And I can tell you the dread of being able to find employees, not just in knowledge workers, not just in professional places, but the skill workers and the service workers in particular. I do not believe I've been to one restaurant where they've been fully staffed. I've seen places where service industry just cannot hire people. And you're seeing that. And what we're seeing in many places is for the profit for the future work, it's shifting to mutual prosperity as a way to begin to get people back into the office place. And there's a lot of trends. So, the reinvention of the workforce is really the flip side of a disruptive change. And we see that. And change was forced. In this instance, it's extremely reactive, but it's changing the way the working culture is going to be for quite a while. We learned to work in an entirely different way. We collaborated, we innovated in new ways, we were agile, we were flexible. And these were all the qualities that we needed to hold on to as we were reinventing organizations. And we're still reinventing organizations. And the future of work is going to continue to have a lot of opportunities, a lot of challenges. Yesterday we were talking about climate change. Climate change is affecting the future of work. We've talked about digitalization, and we see all too often on your program, Sharif, that the lack of quality internet, the lack of some of our quality digital connections are being disrupted even more. We're seeing tons of global shortages, supply chain issues, and we see customers changing the way they want to deal with it. And their needs are changing, and the approach is changing, and business models will change. We're exploring more flexible production methods, particularly in the service industry and the manufacturing industry, as a way to tailor our methods to the customer's needs. We've talked in your programs, Sharif, about the growth of robotics, about the growth of automation and mass automation. We've talked about how artificial intelligence is changing what we're doing. We've talked about the growth of digital twins. All topics that, Sharif, you've done an excellent job of bringing to your listeners and what is being done there. And so that is some of the things setting up the future of work. There's many more trends, but this is, I think, a reasonable, good introduction to say it's a time of transformation right now. And it's a time of not natural evolution on changing the future of work. It's an evolution of the future of work that was a forced change because of the global pandemic. So, Sharif, I hope that gets us started.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Adam, can you hear me? Mr. Adam, can you hear me, Mr. Adam? Sorry, I think internet problem. Mr. Donald, what you want to add for today's discussion? We are discussing on future of work.
Yeah, I know the topic. Oops, let me unmute myself here. Oops.
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm unmuted. Yeah. Well, I think that I read some interesting articles the other day, and I was surprised to find that. Here, let me grab the numbers here. I was surprised to find that the well, logically, because of the pandemic, we would expect to be to be forced automation. Oh, did my camera just get unhooked? Did I just go offline?
We can still hear you.
Okay, that's weird. I don't know what just happened. Anyway, I guess I mean I could go and try and fix it, but I guess I can just keep talking. But anyway, we'd expect forced automation. But what actually happened was that the import of robots in the United States fell 3%, and the sales of industrial automation fell 5.5%. And so, interestingly enough, the exact opposite of what we'd expect to happen happened. So it's worth thinking about one of the things that when we're predicting the future and is that it's easy to kind of mix up science fiction with what's going on, and it's really I see. It says web browser has lost connection to my camera. That's weird.
All right, to hear that.
Why don't this is kind of confusing for me? So why don't you get back to me after I fix my camera, because this is this is confusing to me. Yeah.
Sorry.
Let you talk, and I'll be back soon.
Okay. Professor Ching. Yes.
Okay. Well, future work. I'm talking to the, communicate with Federal Reserve about all this. Okay. The future work. Today we are facing with this crisis in inflation, and they try to increase interest rate. Okay, I have a solution value which relates 50 variables. Okay, price in relation to interest rate, inflation, everything. Okay, you cannot continuously feeding the interest rate. If you have interest rate, the price will adjust accordingly to the interest rate. Okay, price is flexible. Interest rate, people can adjust. The inflation is merciless. It will increase, decrease, by nature. Okay, so there is a crisis going on. And we talk about the future work, which is the long-term prospect of what we do today. And what we are dealing with today, we must deal with the short term. Okay, the long term. Okay, I have the long term solution, but now they have a fire in the kitchen. They need to fix that. Okay, and they're doing it in such a way that is just told that's not what I would say. You try to 50 variables, you try to fit, change the variables, change it, one by one. Try to see if they can get the price to come down. Okay, it doesn't work this way. Okay, for the past since 1984, they tried to do everything, and they tried to avoid the solution. Okay, basically the Federal Reserve, the U.S. Treasury. Okay, they now try to do the right thing, and I told them the way to adjust to get the price right is to have everybody knows what is the equilibrium price. Okay, and I provide a solution to calculate the equilibrium price. based on the problem posed by Kenneth Arrow, Gerald de Boer. Okay, Kenneth Arrow got his Nobel Prize in 1972, Gerald de Boer 1983. So they are the establishment member of the society. Okay, I just do things by myself. Okay, I do things. I'm a mathematician. People cannot understand. And these people are also mathematicians, but they are accepted by the society. Okay, they even got their Nobel Prizes, and the Federal Reserve tried to avoid, continuously avoid this. And what I'm saying is, this Don was talking about something which is related to this. That is, they talk about robot. Okay, robot. Sure, you have the ultimate goal is to have enough innovation, enough knowledge in society, so we can have robots replace all human labors as much as possible. Okay. And I'm also talking to NASA. You see, they keep talking to me. Actually, they try to get me to do some talk, to do something work with. I told them you don't even have a single robot. Okay, a robot should be defined as an intelligent machine which can come safely into contact with the environment. We don't have that today. Okay, the robot cannot touch. Okay, the robot cannot come into contact with the environment. Okay, if it touch, the finger bounces off just like a ball bounces off a racket. And they don't know how to keep the finger not bouncing off. Okay, this is a 300-year-old physics problem. Newton didn't solve it. Robert Hooke didn't solve it. Henry Hertz didn't solve it. 3 super geniuses. They couldn't solve it, and now they think they can solve it. Actually, they just sweep under the rug. They say, okay, physics don't need to solve this, and all this physiology come out to say they solve it. They can make a finger feel. Once they feel, they can touch. It doesn't, this is just get way out of line, you see. Feeding take 50 milliseconds, touch take 2 milliseconds. Okay, this is the order magnitude, the 2 order magnitude difference. So there is this total lack, total ignorance, and total ignore total. It's really just try to avoid total avoidance of knowledge. Okay, they don't want to do hard knowledge. They don't want hard solution. They want the society to operate on common sense. But I don't think they can continue to do that. Okay, eventually, future work, robots will do all the work. Human will do the thinking. Okay, and we're trying to approach that. But that is very far away. Okay, the short-term problem we face today is we're putting money, investing money in quantitative easing. Okay, we give people money so they have a job. Okay, those jobs are not productive. Okay, it's very low rate of return. Okay, quantitative easing is low rate of return. We got to balance that with high rate of return investment. Okay, and the government doesn't know how to do that. Even if you come up with the solutions, nobody can understand. And the only person seems to be doing something which is highly productive is this guy Elon Musk, and also some of the entrepreneurs like Bill Gates. We keep criticizing him. He does something. He does some contribution in user friendliness, but it's going to lead us into complexity crisis. So things are not going in the right direction. Okay, we're being punished by nature. That we're not going in the right direction. We're investing low return, and we should invest in high rate of return, so the society will be okay. And we must keep the economy in equilibrium. Okay, another way, you keep the price at the right level, by really knowing the solution value. Okay, you calculate to see what the price should be. If everybody calculates to see what the price should be, the price will never crash. Okay, and the interest, why you moving the interest? If you keep the interest at a certain point, the price automatically will move to an equilibrium position. It doesn't. In other words, the interest rate, the price is flexible. It can move up and down if they know how to do it. Right now, they don't know how to do it, and the government refused to accept our solution. Okay, so we're stuck at that. So I'm urgently talking to them. Okay, I'm going to probably today or feel this week to call up Jerome Powell, and tell him that I've been working on this case since savings and loan crisis, 1984. I publicly predicted the overvaluation, upon the urge of local appraiser Tom Dunn. And he called me. He said, "You should go talk to them. Announce publicly that the real estate market was overvalued." I've been talking to Alan Greenspan from 84 to 91 when the real estate market crashed. Then I talked to Bernanke since June 2006, predicting that the market is going to be overvalued. A crash is coming, and he didn't listen to me. He told me to get lost. Then 2008, the market crashed. So he said, "Okay, anything you say will not be ignored." Okay, he turned around completely. And now this time, the third time, okay, it start again. And this time is very difficult to solve because the inflation coming very strong. Also, they engage in this war, and both sides try to ruin other side's economy. And the human race is getting into big trouble. And the future work is a good topic. Future work. People are doing work with low productivity. They're all going into marketing. Today we have a money-oriented society. Everything go for short term, not long term. Go for money, not for knowledge. So we have a big problem. I'm in the process of talking to them. Okay, and I have to talk to them because this is happening to all of us, and this is something rather short term. We have to take care of the short term first, obviously. Then we have to wait. Tell them that we cannot use the long term solution to solve the short term, but at least somehow we can get everybody to keep the price at the equilibrium. We don't need to raise keep interest level, keep moving the interest level and try to get the price down or up. This is really rather silly. The price will do its own work. You give me the price, I calculate to you what should be the price, and everybody keep the price at that price. It will never crash. And I have done not only for real estate, I also calculate the stock valuation, stock rate of return. So if we can keep the stock market, real estate market both at equilibrium, the society should be relatively safe for the time being. But on the long term, we got to get knowledge going. We have to increase knowledge. Human knowledge is so lacking. All we have today is science. Science is really irrelevant. It's just dealing with material object. We got to have a social science and life science. And finally, we have looked into fuzzy logic. So, the solution is social science, life science has to accept based on rigor in mathematics and logic. And those rigor are not exact. They're fuzzy. Okay. So people need to really go ahead with go into knowledge and not continue to play around with whatever we have and thinking we're doing great. Today, with this COVID-19, nobody can solve it. Finally, nature come in and solve it with my Omicron. Okay, nature cause it, nature solve it, and this is a process we should understand. This is the way nature control over population. You see, humans, if we don't have enough intelligence, all the old and the sick will die. You see. So basically, all these things, nothing is understood in social science and life science. even science, the foundation of science, classical physics, and then we go into quantum mechanics. Two of them are in conflict now. Okay, so they don't want to throw away the wrong thing. They want to keep both. Okay, so there's a big argument even in physics. So there's something really lacking in knowledge. So this is the key problem. Okay. So Don is back. Let Don continue with his robot talk. That's great. Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yes. Sir Donald.
Well, what I was what I was saying is that that automation is happening a lot more slowly, probably, than we think. There's been a lot of excitement in the last couple of months about what are called large language models, and this is just talking about artificial intelligence, which is something that people are very, very breathless about. And the most amusing thing is that there was an article, and I think it was in the New York Times. I've got to identify. There was an articles in Nature, New York Times, and The Economist, all of a similar nature, including one by a Google scientist who said that this large language model GPT-3, I think it was starting to show actual consciousness. And he put out this dialogue that he had with it, where it was saying, "Oh yeah, I have emotions," and it was talking and analyzing Zen koans and all of this, and it really seemed. Well, it came out yesterday that he'd heavily edited it, and it was bullshit. And so, I think that's pretty funny, because we're all like getting all excited about this good stuff, and it's just. I think basically he just wanted to believe it so much that he just read into it, and that's what's been happening with computers since ELIZA, that people just have a tendency to anthropomorphize them. Another Google scientist called them stochastic parrots, and I think that's a better example, a better definition. Amazon has been automating their warehouses, but it's incredibly difficult to do, because odd-shaped objects are very, 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 very difficult to automate packaging. Delicate, odd-shaped objects and things like that, they just really can't do it. That's why Amazon has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and millions, probably millions of people working at their warehouses. They'd love to get rid of them and turn them all into robots, but they aren't. And as I just pointed out before my camera went out, that the actual investment in robots and automation is going down, not up. So basically what I'm saying is that I believe automation is definitely happening, and it will happen, and we'll get better and better and better at at solving some of these problems. But it's not a singularity that's happening at anywhere near the rate that a lot of people think it is. And in that same vein, there's this thing that's been in economics since I first started learning economics forever ago, back when it was invented. No, I'm not that old, but regardless, it's called the lump of labor fallacy, which is the idea that there's a certain amount of labor available, and people use it all up. So if there's more people that need to work than there is labor available, then there's going to be people out of work. So there's this lump of labor which is available. But that's not really the case. What happens is that more people work, the more people have more money, so they have more desire and ability to buy things. So entrepreneurs invent new things for them to buy, and more things become available. And so the whole future of work, the whole worry about automation, putting us all out of work and putting us all out of jobs, it hasn't ever happened, and there's no particular reason to believe that it will happen. So given that people kind of a premise that people will continue to work and there'll be ways to continue to work, I'd like to kind of examine a kind of an assumption that people have, and I hear a lot on this show, which is that kind of the goal of society and is to train people to work. And so oftentimes on the show we talk about education, and when we talk about education we talk about the idea that we should educate people to have jobs, the right kind of jobs. And that kind of fits together with basically kind of creating people to be machines, to work inside of this machine. In other words, we kind of, organizations become like machines. I mean, the analogy, the way that we've thought of organizations since Charles Taylor has been as machines. We time, and to this day, I mean, Amazon times how long it takes a person. They actually have sensors that time how long it takes a person to put an object in a box. They time how long they space out between doing things. They time how long they take breaks. They monitor every single solitary thing that they do to get them to work in the most efficient possible way, so that person becomes like a part in a machine, that if that person burns out or dies of stress, well, they just toss them out and get somebody else and put them in that same place and do the same thing to them. So the whole idea is that human beings become a part in this machine. And whether they're engineers or line workers on Amazon, that's the model that we have. If any of you have ever applied for a job, you know that they have artificial intelligent software that reads your resumes, and they're looking for keywords in your resume, which what they do is they define the parameters, the qualities that they want in the particular person that they're hiring. They scan through resumes looking for those particular qualities. When they find resumes of people who have those particular qualities, they spit those resumes out, and somebody looks at them in more detail, and perhaps they'll give you a call or not. The point of the matter is that they're trying to create an organization where every person in that organization is completely defined by a strict set of qualities that they have. But that's something that is probably going to wind up having to change over the long term. And it goes to what Hugh is saying, and I really support what Hugh has been saying, because that's like taking away knowledge. That's trying to remove. That's taking away the what humans really do. So it's trying to make human beings like a machine. And it may be, as time goes on, slowly but surely, we will be able to make control systems work better and better, so that they can do more and more of the menial tasks that human beings do. It'll be a lot slower than we wish, and people will. And then we have to ask the question: is what are human beings good at? And human beings are good at guessing, at making guesses about what's possibility. Hugh calls it fuzzy logic, but in logic is called inductive logic. And it's the ability to form hypotheses, which are guesses. So you make a guess about what's possibly true, and you figure out a way to decide whether it's true or not. And that's something computers can't do at all right now. Maybe they never will be able to. And so I think that kind of what everybody's been saying, and it goes all the way back to Norbert Wiener said this back when he invented cybernetics back in the 40s. He wrote a book called The Human Use of Human Beings. And he talked about how potentially cybernetics, which he'd invented, would be able to develop these control systems that would allow us to automate a lot of more and more routine tasks and even mental tasks. And that eventually we would have to ask the question of ourselves is, what are human beings good at? And how can we use what human beings do? And when we talk right now about education and training, we're talking about, we often talk about being better engineers, better science, better mathematicians, and better people like that. And when I look at the writing and poetry that comes out of these large language models, and people say, well, this is as good as a high school student could do, or as good as something, it's ridiculous. I mean, anybody with any literary background looks at that and just kind of goes, this is written by a computer. I mean, it's so bad. And the only reason I can imagine that somebody thinks that is reasonable is because they never, ever, ever read a novel. They got a degree in engineering and they got a degree in mathematics, and they never, ever took a literature class in their lives. And I think that what we need to do is to get people to really start being able to open up and understand, as Hugh says, social science and humanities and literature. And I think that we can begin to start to understand, because ultimately human happiness, human health, and those kinds of things are really what we want as a goal, and the future work, the future, and the thing about being unemployed, as long as there's things that somebody can do that is going to make people's lives better, there's always going to be jobs, because people always are going to want to have their lives be better. And if you can figure out a way to help people's lives be better, then you're as an entrepreneur, you're going to be able to figure out something that people are going to want. And that human happiness is a problem that we're not going to solve by engineering.
Thank you, sir. Professor David Smith, as you know that in Asia Pacific, we are mainly targeting the youth communities for future of work, how they can take their preparation, how they can develop their skills, what actually organization want, corporate world actually want from the youth communities, and what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Well, Sharif, that's a great question, because what we've seen is the great resignation that I talked about earlier has led to really significant talent shortages. And we've seen it in many ways. But one of the places where it's going to affect more and more people going into the workforce, and particularly the younger people right now, is the mental health impacts of the pandemic on the work, on the labor shortages, and actually the mental health as we look at the dissatisfaction of leadership and work today, and the ability to address some of the challenges as companies begin to look at inadequate hybrid work and remote work environments, and the fact that they're looking at changes to do it. And the mental health is going to be really big, because we're seeing really fragmented company cultures. We're seeing raising inflation rates going through, and we're seeing that there's a new way to begin to look at how they're going to work. One of the big trends that is being forecasted right now is the movement to a 4-day work week. And if you look at the number of 4-day work week pilots, these have really increased in the last 6 months. And you're seeing them done in many different places. And for example, in the UK, the government has actually encouraged companies to try it. You see that Microsoft Japan did a pilot of a 4-day work week, and it increased workers' productivity by 40%. And that might help with some of the isolation stuff. We're also seeing for the future students you were talking about, Sharif, moving into it, is we're going to see AI human hybrid work rapidly increase, I believe. The World Economic Forum predicts that AI and automation will lead to the creation of 97 million new jobs by 2026. And you're going to begin to see them, and you're going to see it really happen. But the talent shortage is going to grow and become even harder to deal with as we look at it. And we're looking into ways to look at how the creative economy will change as it leverages the metaverse hype to create new jobs. And I think that is a hype right now, but you're going to see it, and you're going to see that this talent shortage, this human capital shortage, is going to turn not just into a great reshuffle as we're looking at, but it's going to change into a time of great people renegotiating their work environment, renegotiating pay. We're seeing companies coming out and telling employees that even though you're working remotely, if you move from a insane, expensive state like California in the United States for a company, you move to a lower cost state where they keep taxes in check and everything like that. The companies are saying, we're going to cut your pay just because you move to a less expensive state, even though you're working remote, doing the same job with the same responsibilities. That's probably not sustainable. So you're going to see things. And Sharif, what I want to do is just take 1 minute. I'm going to share a couple of slides to finish my concluding remarks, if that's okay with you. Because a couple of years ago was really the keynote speaker at a program on the future of work not far from Donald. And these are a couple of the slides which really came in to say there, and they directly answer your question on what is it for people in your part of the world and in other parts of the world as they look at how to do things. And the slide deck's still process and get up there. But one of the huge global trends is that there is a halt in the future of the work age. Tree, is that something you can bring up for me?
Yes.
The slide didn't come through clearly. The colors are missing on yours. Every country on this chart, there is a dramatic decrease in the number of people, of working age people going forward, from highs going low. And it just doesn't show it there. But to give you an idea, if we look at in the year 2000, the world was a pretty young world with a majority of the population less than 60 years old. If I look to where we are going to be now, the world is rapidly aging, and the number of people above 60 is dramatically going up. So what we're seeing is there's going to be fewer and fewer people available for more and more jobs. And there's going to be a shortage of people to fill the jobs coming up, even without the pandemic and even without the changes that the pandemic made. And the other thing is that we have 6 generations in the workforce at the same time now. And for your students, Sharif, and others growing up, there has to be an understanding that each of these communicate different ways, they work different ways, their preferences are different when they meet people and others on that. And this is going to dramatically shape the future work, is the fact that we have all these generations in the workforce. And the newer generation is entering the workforce earlier because of the shortages of people, and we're going to see that continue to go. And what we changed the work-life paradigm. It used to be when I was young, when probably Hugh and Donald were young, you went to school, you worked, and then you retired and had leisure. And where we then is we shifted to a cyclical one, where you had education, work, and leisure. Then you went back and had more education, work, and leisure. And this was a trend for quite a while. But where we are now is a blended lifestyle, where education, work, and leisure is occurring at the same time. So, Sharif, you've heard me tell people on your shows before that we're in a time of lifelong learning. And this blended lifestyle is a way to look at that trend of lifelong learning, because I know the people who work with me, uh, they're all going to boot camps, they're doing online learning while they're holding down a full-time job and stuff. That is becoming more and more of our lifestyle. And this lifelong learning is being accomplished in this blended lifestyle as we're looking at it. But the future work is competitive. No one's going to pay you just for having a college degree anymore with all these other options. And competition's no longer limited to where you live. And I think that's very important for your students in Malaysia and other places, Sharif, is it's commonplace to hire people from all across the planet. But what's interesting is when you talk to executives today, their outsourcing isn't about saving money, which it used to be. And many people thought today people outsource for innovation. They outsource for competencies and capabilities they can't fill. And that's really important to go there. And I have to throw this one in, Sheree, to answer your question. The word career is outdated as the word typewriter. Today, if someone entering the workforce today wearing my futures hat, they're going to have over 25 career changes while they're a working age. And that working age is getting longer and longer. So it's not like they're going to go to one company and work their whole time. So what's happening is the career is becoming more like a movie production team, where people come in, work, go to other places, change jobs constantly during it. And the pandemic has forced the change of this, making careers less important and moving for more of a production-like environment with movies. And really because the future of work is going to be the individuals. And the individual is more in charge of their future of work now than they've ever have been in the past. But it's incumbent upon the individuals to really focus on the need for lifelong learning and to continue to do there and to look not just vertically in the industries they're choosing, but look horizontally across the other industries, because the speed of innovation is increasing, and often that innovation is knocking down the boundaries between those vertical industries and making them more horizontal, which is part of that systems of systems street that I talk about often. So that's my concluding remarks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Dr. Eric Du.
Thank you. It's great to hear some of the other viewpoints from some of the other people here in our forum. I think it's important that we understand some general truisms, things that are generally true and not perfectly true. But in regards to working and because there's a lot of fear that people have about automation and all these other stuff. And those fears are completely unfounded because the truism shows otherwise. Okay. The truism is that for all of human history, okay, through the whole of human civilization, okay, we have constantly added new technology, whether it's taking a branch down from a tree and then shaping it into a spear or whatever, into an axle or a tire wheel or something like that, whatever it is that we've done, the end result is not fewer jobs, it's actually more jobs. Okay, we've always had more people increasing, right? The number of humans have always increased. For most of humanity, it's been pretty steady. And then in the last 50, 100 years, it grew very quickly. Okay, even during that whole time, with the huge increase in humanity, from 1 billion to 2 billion to 3 to 4, and currently we're at that 8 billion people, we have more jobs. We are more employed now than ever before. We have more people doing things, various sorts of things, okay? Things that nobody would have ever imagined, even 50 years ago, 20 years ago, okay, 10 years ago, okay? There are jobs now that are being created that nobody knows about, okay? You can't even write down a job description for it, it's just, that's a truism, okay? Second truism, the world is getting richer, okay? If you take the market value of a company, like Apple is like 1.8 to 2.5 trillion dollars, right? That's a huge number, in terms of market value. You take that market value, you take Google, you take all the ones, you take all the mom and pop stores, you add them all up. That's like quintillion dollars in asset value, okay? That thing has grown constantly throughout human history. Okay, those value has some value in creating new jobs because somebody has to feed that. You got to feed that. You got to keep getting people jobs to do those work to keep growing, and that's what's going to happen. Automation is only there to help it grow. Okay, nobody builds automation to slow things down. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so those are the truism, and as far as having automation, not do as well as humans in some areas. I think Donna was talking about guessing or thinking, human thinking. Actually, humans are really terrible at thinking and guessing about the future. I think in general, if you were to evaluate humans in guessing about things, they probably hit about 10% success rate. Okay, if they were to predict something in the near future, to the medium range, to the long range, of course, the further out in time, the worse they are. But what happens is that humans, all 8 billion of us, are constantly guessing, okay? And one of us is going to hit that jackpot and guess right. And then everybody follows that, okay? It's like Harry Potter, okay? Harry Potter, I never even read the book series, okay, but I've seen the movies and it's a very popular thing. Okay, somebody, J.K. Rowling, hit the jackpot, right, by writing Harry Potter, the Harry Potter series, and everybody gloms onto it. She herself made $1 billion. Okay, I think she's the wealthiest book author ever. Okay, because she made billions of dollars on that, and she donated a whole bunch of that money as well. So good for her. But who's to guess that was what was going to hit the jackpot? Nobody would have guessed that. But now you have all these jobs that are created. I think either David or Donald was talking about the Hollywood model, right? Now everybody comes in, and literally Hollywood comes in, and they have teams and teams of people, hundreds of thousands of people, to dress up the Harry Potter characters, to make the costumes, to make the scenery, to build the Hogwarts castle and everything. Those things big jobs. Those are jobs that people are willing to pour thousands and thousands of dollars to workers to make that. Okay, but you say, well, there's no way for automation to create that. Who knows? We don't have enough automation trying to do that. Okay, we don't have enough robots to to guess what's going to be the next big thing. Okay, we do actually have something similar to that in the sense that in Hollywood, as well as in the music industry, we have not necessarily automation, but technology that sort of defines how a movie should work. They have frameworks. Okay, so they describe a general principle of how it should work, and that again is not that's not. I mean, that's automation in the sense that they want to make sure that it fits in. It's similar to your idea of for the resumes reading and all that, right? You know, what works as a resume that works that will get hired is the same thing that they use to determine whether a script will work as a good will make money as a profitable movie. But they don't work very well either, and what comes out is rather bland and consistent pablum, right? I mean, that's why every movie looks the same. Every superhero movie follows the same pattern and all that. It's because they're following an automation. Automation isn't at that stage where they do crazy things yet, which is unfortunate because you want it to do crazy things. It's humans that are doing the crazy things that allows us to find the one that gets viral, the one that people like to see. And then once that happens, once that takes off, then everybody gloms onto it, and suddenly you have thousands and thousands of new jobs dealing with that thing. Okay, for example, TikTok, right? There are people who are making money off of TikTok. I have no clue how that works. Okay, but they're doing it, and because they're doing it, there are people that are working and supporting them. Right, you have to have people who do the camera work, then you have to do the people who do the editing and all these other stuff. I have a friend who is not on TikTok, or I guess he may also be on TikTok, but he has a YouTube channel. Okay, and I asked him, like, who does the camera work for him? YouTube actually provides all that for him. They actually have people there to help him do the editing and all these things. He doesn't have to. He just provides the content, and then he also provides some say in what he likes to see in terms of the content and all that. But the actual person who does the editing, that's someone else. That's a job. Okay, that's a job to do that. And there are people at YouTube whose job is to watch all these videos that get submitted to YouTube. There's bazillions of videos that get submitted to YouTube, and there are people there that do nothing but sit there and watch 8 hours a day videos. Okay, and they can't just watch parts of it; they have to watch the whole thing. Okay, and when they watch the whole thing, it's basically to prevent things like showing actual killings and child porn type of thing. They want to make sure that things like that doesn't occur, and so you have to watch the whole thing. You can't skip parts of it. But that's a job. Okay, who would have thought that watching videos on a computer screen is a paying job? But it is. Okay, it is all these things that keep coming up, right? And that's the truism, is that we will always have jobs. We will always have more jobs because there will be more money around because people are chasing after it. Okay, they're chasing after more money, and you can't say that there's an equilibrium. There's a fixed amount of money. There's no such thing as that. Okay, because the planet is not a closed system. Okay, and we, the humans, decide what is of value, and we peg what we call this is value of $1. Okay, we don't. There's no intrinsic thing that says that this object is worth $1 or $10 or something like that. We decide what that is. Okay, so we're not beholden to what is minimum wage, what is this, what is that. We pay whatever is market rate, and that's what people decide on. Now, there are people who want to push down the rate of labor. Okay, understandable, because you don't want to pay that. That's a good chunk of your expenses. Right? You want to decrease that by having automation, but you're trading labor fees with capital expenses, right? and operational expenses when you trade for automation. The question is that will automation be able to provide more than what the human labor can? Well, in some cases, yes, right? I mean, that's why we have tools, right? Nobody goes to work in a construction site and use bare hands to lay bricks or put things together. In some cases, you just physically cannot do that, right? You cannot put an I-beam onto a building without some tools. That just cannot happen. You don't have enough people to lift things up to 1,000 feet in the air. That's just ridiculous, right? So tools are required to make things happen. And that's one of the things that we always, and tools is just in the spectrum with automation and robotics and all that. They're all just the same thing, okay? And when people say, oh, I'm scared of robotics and all that, I said, are you scared of a hammer? It's just a matter of degree in terms of how much automation you have, okay, between a hammer and a robot. Okay, it just, one looks like a robot, whatever that means. That's also another thing too, is that a lot of people have this vision of a robot having some anthropomorphic shape. It has 2 arms, it has a head, has legs. Why do you need legs? What do you need arms? What do you need 2 arms? What do you need a head? None of those make sense. One of the most interesting things that was enlightening to me was back in 1977 when Star Wars came out, and we saw that scene in Tatooine where there are all these crazy looking robots moving around. And that was like eye-opening to us, because our vision of what a robot was prior to that had, a head, 2 arms and 2 legs, and, going on like this. Other than C-3PO, we had R2-D2 that does not look humanistic, does not look anthropomorphic, and a whole bunch of other ones, okay? And that was an eye-opening thing, because then we realized, why do you need to have something that resembles a human, okay? Physical resemblance to a human for a robot. It makes absolutely no sense, okay? And now we don't. We have nanobots, okay, that are literally small enough to go inside your body to do analysis and all these other stuff, things that humans cannot do, okay? You build robots to do things that humans cannot do, okay? You want something to be able to jump 50 feet in the air. I don't know why, but humans cannot jump 50 feet in the air and survive coming down, okay? But you can build a robot to do that. I don't know why, but, again, let's skip the why as opposed to the how or whether it can. That we'll figure that out when it comes in, how to use something like that. And but the technology is there, available to do that, and that is what we want to see, and that is what's always going to happen. And the side effect of all that is that there will always be more jobs for humans, because we need to cater to that. And as David, I think it was David that showed the graphs of all these things, we are having fewer and fewer younger people coming in, but a lot of us older folks, I'm about to turn 60, so I'm definitely in the old side. We don't have to do the physical labor anymore. I don't have to bend over and dig a hole in the ground to plant seeds anymore. I can be a farmer and never have to be out in the see the fields, okay? Because there are new farming technologies that I can literally do it in home, right? Vertical farming in home that can grow more than enough for myself, that I can actually grow enough that I can give to friends or even sell at a farmer's market or something like that. So I can do that. That's a possibility. I probably can't at the moment. I cannot be a rancher. I don't have space to feed and raise cattle. Okay, but within maybe 10 to 15 years, I can probably grow in my home genetically equivalent to beef. I can do that, okay? And then maybe I can do it, and I can add my own special sauce and whatever to it, and it'll be Eric's beef that I can eat. I can have it for myself to eat, or I can sell it to a restaurant, and then they can say, "Hey, this is Eric's beef. It's a really different type of thing. It's a little chewier, I don't know, whatever it is." That can happen, okay? We are in that cusp towards that technology where we have, genetically grown meat using yeast. Okay, the yeast will spit out certain types of proteins, and then you just combine the proteins, and then you recombine, and suddenly next thing you know, we have something that looks like me. So anyway, I don't want to keep on rambling on, but follow the truism. The general truism is that there will be more jobs available because there are more people around and there's going to be more needs for jobs. So I'm not fearful about, oh, where are you going to work? I can't predict what's going to work because, like I said, humans are terrible at prediction. Okay, so I'm not going to try to predict things. But if you look at history, you know that there will always be more jobs available. It has to, and there always will be.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your excellent analysis. Now I request Professor Ching for the concluding remarks.
Okay, well, first, what is driving the social progress today is automation. Okay, it takes a strange form. You see, most countries do not realize this, except maybe U.S., where there's this great deal of automation, which create companies with $1 trillion of market cap. So when we work for Google, when we use Google search engine, we're actually working for Google. Okay, human is the automation part. Okay, and we are working for free, but we also get some benefit. So this idea of getting to automation is the Google is a near almost complete automated company. Okay, it's the same as Facebook and all other social media other companies. The top five company are all really using human as the automator. Okay, so before I go on more, and I like to get back to this economic which runs all of us. Okay, the logical relation for the economy is the rate of return should be greater than the interest rate, which should be greater than the inflation rate. And the inflation, when it goes up, it must raise the interest rate. So also the rate of return, and this causes the worry for the Fed. Okay, and now we get to the point of what is the highest rate of return. The highest rate of return is innovation. Okay, innovation and the automation is part of innovation's goal. Okay, and it has high risk and high return. So that people shouldn't say that human cannot. Okay, Dr. Eric made this wrong assumption that it is not human make wrong guesses. It's the humans' guesses are not guided by the solution value. Okay, if you have a proposal, you have to judge its value first before you promote it. Okay, and today nobody knows the solution value, so they don't know how to promote it. So that gets to another point that Dr. Eric mentioned, that is what CEO wants today are robots, not humans. Okay. They want robots to work for them, but they cannot get robots, so they use humans. So today's employees are robot substitutes before we have real robot. Okay, and that's why the jobs are usually very boring. Okay, and the people complain about this. But in the future, all humans should be CEOs, and they should use robot to do the work. But human in the future, humans should be supported by universal basic income because humans are the source of innovation. Okay, they should be supported by universal basic income before they become CEO or innovators. So this is there's something wrong with today's view, the overall view that there's many people make decisions. You see, it's right for just one person to make decision, then other people to carry it out. Okay, those people who carry out usually must listen to orders. They are preferable to be robots who would listen, who would do whatever you tell them. But that's not the case. So that is the problem with the fundamental problem. Okay, that is the reality. We're all being brainwashed by another reality, which says human has work creativity. But no, that is this is not generally true. Okay, and the work should increase continuously because as we innovate, we need more and more robots. So there's more and more work available, but those work are available for robots. Okay, so human beings need to go into to build robots, and they claim they already have lots of robots. I don't believe that. I think they need to solve the problem of contact first before they can try it. And the Japanese sixth generation computer science is robotics, and the Japanese failed because the robot cannot touch. Okay, and how can Elon Musk claim he's going to come out with a robot in this year, end of this year or next year? I don't believe that. I don't think he can. There's nobody can solve the contact problem. How can you come up with a robot? It cannot come into contact with. So he probably used the robot for himself to in the factories, just doing some supervising job, not directly for substitute humans. So far, humans still got the dexterity, the ability to come into contact with anything. So well, there are a lot of work to do. I just leave it to Donald to continue. Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
thank you. We have our new guest, Madam Clara. Can you hear me? Clara, hello. Can you unmute yourself? Okay. In that situation, Mr. Donald, what's your concluding remarks?
Well, everyone brought up excellent points. I want to just quickly clarify something that I realized was Dr. Eric misunderstood, which is when I'm talking about guessing, I'm not talking about guessing about the future or guessing about what book is going to be for sale. I'm talking about more simple guessing that's closer to what Hugh is talking about when he's talking about contact. When you pick up the phone and there's a friend on the other end of the phone, you can hear by their voice that something's going on. And you guess, oh, are you, well, it sounds like you're a little down today. Or, wow, it sounds like something great happened to you. And we pull up to a four-way stop intersection with no stoplights, with no stop signs. And we see this car, and we just look at the way that the person is, and we realize this person is not going to stop like they're supposed to. They're not going to yield like they're supposed to. We just guess, and we're going through our lives. In reality, you have to guess what's in back of you right now. You don't know. You can't see it. A cat might have walked into the room behind you. You could be wrong. We're making an infinite number of guesses as we go through our lives, and that's what the computers can't do. They don't have a way of doing that. We don't know how to get them to do that yet. We might someday, but right now we don't know. And so they can't really navigate through the world the same way that we can. I think I really like the point that David made up about, or brought up. He didn't make it up. He brought it up with great slides as well about demographic changes. He brought a couple of points that I want to highlight. Is that we are in the developed world going through a period where there's lower population growth among, and because of that, there's the younger demographic people are the overall distribution of population is skewing towards older. That's, for me, it's a good reason to increase immigration and mobility of people between countries, because the population is growing quite rapidly in Africa and South Asia and other places like that, and it would be nice to welcome some of them here and try and balance things out a little bit. But that's a complicated thing. And he brought up another thing that David brought up another thing that about 4-day work weeks and lifelong learning. And I just was going through something about reminded me of something about Finland, which I'm actually contacting some people in Finland, and it's the end of the time that I can talk to Finnish people about work for all the way until September, because Finnish people stop working right about now, and they don't start working again until September, and that's that. I mean, you can talk to them about it, and they'll say, gosh, sounds really interesting. I'll get back to you in September. I mean, that's that. And there's in their school system, the kids have no homework. By law, they can't go for more than 45 minutes without going out and playing for 15 minutes. And their school week is, catch this, 20 hours long, and they have no tests, but they do, take compete in standardized tests just for competition purposes, and they do the best in the world. So basically, what winds up happening is that the way we actually learn is not through a fire hose. Our brain has to, if we have less stress, we assimilate things better and we do better. So lower work weeks, like David was talking about, he mentioned higher productivity, and the country with the highest productivity is France, which has the lowest work week. So basically, the system that we have is a lot like what Hugh just mentioned, is that we're basically being trained to be robots, and that's not the goal that we really want to have in the future. How do we as an individual get from here to there? I love the idea that we're all need to be CEOs, and that's the ultimate goal, because that's sort of the opposite of being a cog in a machine. And it goes back to what I'm saying, because the guessing part of it has a lot to do with empathy. Because in order for me to be able to guess what your emotions mean and what you're doing emotionally, I have to be able to kind of put myself in your place and be you and feel what you're feeling. And when we talked about the idea, when Eric talked about the computer programs that can kind of write movie scripts, and they write some music, and I think it's awful music, but it's not. It's just homogeneous, music that I don't particularly like. I like improvised jazz and things like that. But what may be the difference between J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the others is J.K. Rowling's was this poor mother that was on, to Hugh's point, she was on the dole. She was basically on basic income, and she sat in a coffee shop, and her income was so low that she would write her books on placemats with a pencil. And she wrote Harry Potter on placemats in a coffee shop. And I suspect that her empathy, it was her connection to others that made it be, was part of the point that made her be able to have the warmth in her book, that made it be able to take off. I mean, and that's something that we're not going to be able to program into a computer for a very, very long time, if ever. That goes to also what Hugh was saying about touch, because we grow up from the time we're very, babies. Um, we use language to get things, to do things, to get our parents to do things for us, to play with other children, to do the business of life. So language doesn't exist in a box in a machine. Language exists as part of what we use to live our lives together, and it's active. And how can a computer like get into that flow of life with us? And that's why computers have really, it will be a long time before they come anywhere close to having human language. But what is that? When you're talking about the future of work, and we're talking in theory to young people who are trying to look at work, right now, if you want to get a job, the kind of jobs that people are going to want you to have, first and foremost, are things of engineering jobs. But a lot of the group that I'm with in Finland, the people there are computer science, and then they're also study social psychology and even literature. And the point of the matter is that we're interested in user interface and the connection, like how computers work with us together within our lives to make our lives better. And everything from this Fitbit that I live on, that lives on me and controls my life, it's all the technology is integrated into my human life and my human connection with other people. And it's been shown that just reading novels increases people's empathy. It on tests of empathy and creativity, your people who've lived in another country for like a year score almost double on tests of creativity than people who haven't lived in another country on average. And so if you're like trying to teach yourself how to be the most valuable person you can in life, step outside of the box of just trying to learn the engineering stuff, because you'll learn that's fine. It's fairly rote, you can do it, but consider going beyond that and understanding what it is that makes you a person, and what makes you different, and why people are different than machines, and what it is that makes you and the people around you what we are. And you'll be golden. People will be beating the path to your door if you can do that.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clara, can you hear me? Okay, thank you everyone for joining today's session. Today's session actually very important, especially for the youth. Yes, technology actually creates a lot of opportunities. On the other hand, what Mr. Donald said, that empathy, this is also important. And one thing I always want to share the developed world, that developing nations has their own story. Let's say for learning purpose, we actually visit developed world. 2012, 2013, this year, I was in Oxford University and Cambridge University. That time I meet with different countries people, different cultural people, and it give us a new thought process. It give us a new idea. Uh, on the same time, I request many of my friends, why don't you visit Bangladesh? Why don't you do your internship in my country? We have also a different story. We have different culture. We have different corporations. So many of my friends also take this opportunity. They visit and they do jobs. This is interesting. So the world is big. Yes, developed nations has many things. We love to learn and we go for learning. Empathy is important, definitely important. I believe that the more the global leader they meet with these developing nations, meet with grassroots level people, they can handle their nation properly. And we are observing right now uh, many global leaders, they are very much questionable with their intellectual ability, with their I'm sorry that how we are observing that Russia and Ukraine war. So the global leader, the political leader, the corporate leaders, everybody has to listen the global peoples. And definitely, I believe that the more developed nations engage with grassroots level people, engage with developing nations, they get new empathy, they can understand each others, and they can be better leaders. So that is the future. Definitely, that is the future. So that is the reason I developed this World Talent Economy Forum, and people from 100 different countries, they regularly join in World Talent Economy Forum. And I want to give thanks to all of the speakers, those who continuously support our forum. Thank you, Mr. David Smith, Dr. Eric Du, Professor Ching, Mr. Donald, Madam Clara, who joined today's sessions. And I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible with your government agencies, with your corporations, and with academy. And thank you. Bye bye and take care.